Okay, well, I want to welcome everyone to today's 3WG meeting. My name is Annie Quinn. I'm the program manager at Three Rivers Wet Weather. I welcome you today on this November day for probably our last 3WG meeting of the year. And at this meeting, we want to present to you a regional topic of incredible significance to hopefully the headwaters here in Pennsylvania for the Ohio River Basin. So I'd like to introduce our speaker today and jump right into the topic at hand. Dr. Harry Stone is the chairperson of the Ohio River Basin Alliance, ORBA, and he served as the Orsenco-ORBA project lead for the initiative within the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that has delivered the collaborative Plan for the Ohio River Basin 2020 through 2025. Dr. Stone previously worked for Battelle at the Institute of Advanced Manufacturing Sciences, where he managed scores of multidisciplinary projects, underpinned by his academic breadth. A PhD in Miami University, multidisciplinary in ecology, political science, and economics. MBA, the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, and an MS from Vanderbilt University. Dr. Stone co-authored the Ohio River Basin Climate Change Effects and Adaptation Strategies, focused on the value of key ecosystem services. Dr. Stone's technical and policy-making facilitation has included harmful algae blooms studies for the Grand Lake St. Mary's in Ohio and Lake Erie, focal natural resources in the Missouri River Ecosystem Restoration Plan, and sustainability decision-making for 3 states and 2 regions. It is an honor and a pleasure to introduce Dr. Stone this morning. As you know, ORBA is an organization that is growing and looking for memberships. He'll jump into that, but as a steering committee member of ORBA, it is an honor to give you the information that I've been learning as that member, and I look forward to hearing Dr. Stone's presentation. Jump right in.
Thank you, Annie. I very much thank the organization for this opportunity to talk to you about this new basin-wide plan. After 10 years of ORBA collaborative summits and a 17-month period to gather stakeholder input, the plan for the Ohio River Basin was released by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on the 28th of September of 2020 and has been accepted for implementation by the ORBA Steering Committee. This presentation will discuss the 6 goals of the plan, the next steps in the plan, and how organizations like yours can be engaged. We believe that this plan can have a significant impact on the entire Ohio River Basin, but it's going to take all of us working together to make it happen. So what I'll be covering in our few minutes together, next slide, are the, go ahead, thank you, that one, are the Ohio River Basin and the fact that we have a problem. The second part will talk about our collaborative plan with an emphasis on our. This is intended to be of value to the entire Ohio River Basin and any organization that addresses water resource issues. We view this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the basin and for you. This is your opportunity to get involved in making a difference for the Ohio River Basin. When we speak of the Ohio River Basin, to be clear, it includes all the land from New York to West Virginia to Alabama, from which water ultimately flows to the Ohio River. 2009 was a really landmark year. In that year, the Ohio River Basin Congressional Caucus was established. That same month, an Ohio River Basin Summit was held. It was co-led by, next slide, please. The summit was co-led by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Orsenco, and the U.S. EPA. Also in 2009, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers completed the Ohio River Basin-wide reconnaissance study. That included the Pittsburgh, Huntington, Louisville, and Nashville districts. And that study provided many visionary recommendations for the basin and was actually the key focus for the summit in 2009. The conclusion of the summit was that there are lots of challenges and recommendations, but without basin-wide collaboration, without identified priorities, without unity of voice, the Ohio River Basin was at a disadvantage. The Great Lakes Restoration Initiative was provided as an example. The initiative that year provided more than $400 million for restoration in the Great Lakes. They have since received for the Great Lakes more than $3 billion for ecological restoration. And during that same period, the 204,000 square mile Ohio River Basin has received funding through the Targeted Geographic Program. Meanwhile, at least 11 other geographic areas, some as small as 700 square miles, have shared billions of dollars of restoration funding. So the key message, the key concern that came out of that summit was that we have a problem in the basin. We need a collaborative strategy that will enable the Ohio River Basin to speak with one voice and thereby gain leverage, influence, and funding. Next slide, please. So to meet that need, the Ohio River Basin Alliance was formed in 2009, specifically to address that need for a collaborative strategy and a unified voice for the Ohio River Basin. We adopted 4 guiding principles that are critical to moving forward successfully. The first is to include everyone. This is our plan. This is a plan for all of us. ORBA currently has 400 members representing more than 180 organizations. These are very diverse: federal, state agencies, commissions, businesses, academia, and non-governmental organizations. We invite you to join and be part of this ORBA initiative, but we also would ask you to reach out so that we make sure that we're including everyone. We want more organizations to be part of this collaboration, which will increase the strength and credibility of what we're trying to do. The second guiding principle was to leverage existing authorities. So, for example, our website is actually hosted on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Huntington District website. And ORSANCO, the 8-state commission for the Ohio River Basin, served as ORBA's fiscal sponsor for the Planning Assistance to States initiative with the Corps that led to the plan. We seek to capitalize on existing collaborations. And as an example, in our recent summit, we partnered with the Ohio River Basin Consortium for Research and Education. And all of this, as it's stated in our guidelines, is to not impede or infringe on the mission of any other organization. That is a very negative way of saying what we really want, which is we want to work for the purpose of enhancing the effectiveness and success of existing organizations. So it's really about recognizing that there's a lot of stuff already going on and trying to bring that together into a collaborative plan that will allow us to gain influence and funding. Next slide, please. This slide shows the logos of the steering committee for ORBA, which is our leadership. And I just wanted to put it up here to highlight the breadth of the organizations that we include. As Annie pointed out, she, on behalf of Three Rivers Weather, is a steering committee member, as is Karen Glotfelty from the Allegheny County Parks Foundation. Richard Harrison, the executive director of ORSANCO, serves on the steering committee. And there are many other folks serving that come from the Energy Industry Association, from businesses, from conservation agencies, from major environmental groups, from state agencies, universities, and academic institutions. So we're really trying to make sure that we have a breadth for the basin and for our areas of interest. Next slide. So now let me move into the plan, this collaborative plan. Orsanco acted as WRBA's fiscal sponsor and signed a planning assistance to states agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers in February of 2019. And the purpose of this planning agreement was to develop a collaborative basin-wide strategy or plan. Stakeholder collaboration was a key part of that. Our stakeholder collaboration included 5 webinars. It included 2019 summit that, for the Ohio River Basin that was held in Athens, Ohio. We used that time to vet the goals and objectives and to work on strategic actions. This was then followed by workshops that were held in Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Nashville. This was in the good old days when we went and did this in person, and it brought together stakeholders to refine the plan and to fill in gaps. The plan was then distributed for public and stakeholder comments, and the comments were addressed. The final plan was then received from the Army Corps of Engineers on the 28th of September. So this is very exciting. This is an important milestone. This plan begins to fulfill that 2009 vision of a collaborative strategy for the basin. But this is only a starting point. There is much more that needs to be done. Next slide, please. There are 6 goals within this plan. The first is healthy productive ecosystems. Second is abundant clean water. Third is world-class nature-based recreation opportunities. A fourth is to be the nation's most valuable river transportation and commerce corridor. The fifth is reliable flood control and risk reduction. And the 6th is knowledge and education to inform decisions. For each of these goal areas, a working group has been established and a working group leader has been appointed. That we view the working groups as being the key key group that will move forward the strategies for the respective goals. And so, for example, Jordan Lebetkin has been assigned from the National Wildlife Federation to work on the healthy productive ecosystems goal. Richard Harrison, the executive director of Orsanco, is leading the abundant clean water goal. And Marty Heddle, who is the past chair of the Inland Waterways Users Board that reports to Congress on the needs for locks and dams in the nation, is leading our transportation and commerce goal. Next slide, please. Here, the goals are highlighted in the pink boxes, and we have some of the objectives for the goals in the blue boxes. And lines are drawn from the goals to the objectives that they impact or that they are impacted by. Now, candidly, I could have drawn a whole lot more lines. I just got tired of drawing them. But the point is that there is a significant overlap among the goals. So, for example, fishable, swimmable waters is assigned to abundant clean water working group. However, that goal impacts nature-based recreation, our fishing fun. It also is impacted by ecological restoration, and science and education informs everything. So we recognize that there are substantial interconnections among the goals. So while we have our working groups that are tasked with moving forward on these objectives, ORBA will not be working in silos. Our working group leaders will be meeting together monthly, as well as monthly with the whole steering committee to coordinate and collaborate to make sure that we end up with a plan an implementation that is very coordinated across all of the goal areas. Next slide, please. I'll take a few minutes now to talk a bit about each of these goals. And the first I'll talk about is the knowledge and education to inform decisions. The big idea for this goal is to identify and prioritize the knowledge and education needs to inform decisions in all of the goal areas. We believe that good decisions in every goal area depends on being informed by sound science and good economic analyses. Further, an informed public is critical for underpinning the sound decisions of our representatives. I lift up the University of Pittsburgh's Collaboratory for Water Research, Education, and Outreach as an example of an organization that is seeking to meet this need, focusing on the key water challenges like water quality, green infrastructure, and flooding. This region, the Pittsburgh region, is really uniquely blessed to have the Hines endowments to help this and other water and sustainability efforts. But prioritized and well-funded research and education is critical not only for this region, but for the entire basin. It's needed to really advance all of the other goals in a way that is well informed. So what we're looking for from this working group principally is coordination and collaboration among the efforts that are already underway in knowledge and education and research in order to avoid duplication and to increase the effectiveness of informing decisions and educating the public. Next slide, please. For bulk transportation, the Ohio River Navigation System is a unique asset. The Port of Pittsburgh is an important part of the Inland Waterways system with its 17 locks and dams and 200 miles of navigable waters. There are two foci for this goal. The first is to ensure adequate water in our rivers so that and to ensure that we have efficiently functioning locks so that we have effective river navigation. The Inland Waterways Users Board and the Waterways Council are key organizations here that provide important leadership, identifying the needs and priorities and challenges and solutions for the locks and dams of our nation, and specifically for our basin. The second focus is the need for more waterborne commerce. Right now, we have excess capacity in our ports. We want to facilitate and endorse regional collaboration by governments, industry, and non-governmental organizations that can improve the regional economic performance and competitiveness by creating an attractive portfolio, streamside land, addressing brownfields, working on brownfield redevelopment that can help bring in some of that commerce that we're looking for. We want to strengthen the water-related infrastructure and develop a cooperative approach to attract sustainable industries that would use our water resources, our ports, terminals, and barge transportation. Next slide, please. The nature-based recreation goal envisions a basin-wide network of interconnected water and terrestrial trails that then grow our outdoor recreation enjoyment, but also business that grows up along water and land trails. As you know, we're not starting from scratch on this. I noted that the Pennsylvania Environmental Council is celebrating 50 years of work that includes developing water and terrestrial trails. Inside and outside of Pennsylvania, many organizations are working on these challenges. There are many initiatives underway. I lift up Tennessee Riverline as an example, where they're working in consultation with the National Park Service to develop 652 miles of river trail along the Tennessee River. And that is now engaging communities who are becoming supportive Rivertown partners. So this ORBA working group will facilitate collaboration and cooperation among the important but disparate outdoor recreation initiatives of the basin. And by doing this, we hope to be able to do a better job of identifying funding sources, increasing attention, gaining leverage, and securing that funding. Next slide, please. The big picture for the Ohio River ecological restoration is really rooted in the key messaging from that 2009 summit. And that is to replicate what has been done in the Great Lakes, the Everglades, Chesapeake Bay, and many other watersheds. And you all know about this because as I have talked to folks in Pennsylvania, I've heard about a state that is split by the Continental Divide into ecological restoration haves and have-nots. We want a broad, unified voice to provide the influence necessary to secure the billions of dollars to address the restoration needs of the Ohio River Basin, thereby eliminating that divide between the haves and have-nots in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and candidly throughout the basin. With working group leadership being provided by the National Wildlife Federation, ORBA is striving to build a large coalition of enthusiastic advocates that can support the efforts of the basin states to secure geographic restoration funding for the Ohio River Basin. Next slide. Flooding is expected to be a problem, a growing problem, as precipitation patterns in the Ohio River Basin continue to change. There's at least $70 billion in value in at-risk infrastructure in the special hazard flood risk area of the Ohio River Basin. This value is protected by aging dams and levees and flood walls. Many of these are more than 50 years old, and they're threatened by the changing precipitation patterns of the basin. But building flood protection in one location without thinking about the basin in a holistic sense can result in increased upstream and downstream flooding. The big idea here is to encourage thinking of our networks of streams and rivers as a connected system. And I want to talk a little more in detail about this specific goal and talk a bit about the objectives. So the first objective is by 2025 to prepare a basin-wide investment plan that addresses high flood risk areas, including areas where dams and local protection projects exist. Some of the strategic actions here include examining these high risk areas, identifying the solutions for those high risk areas with a particular focus on non-structural or green infrastructure type solutions like wetlands and restorations. The second objective is by 2025, having the Corps of Engineers, U.S. Geological Survey, and the National Weather Service jointly prepare a basin-wide plan to update and expand components of an adequate flood warning system that would incorporate considerations of climate change. Some of these strategic actions include finding the funding for the operation and maintenance of adequate warning systems that takes into account the changing hydrology of the basin. It also includes updating the climate studies that were published in 2017 by the Corps of Engineers in partnership with ORBA. The third objective for the flood control and risk reduction is to hold regular collaborative stakeholder meetings to discuss and identify opportunities and issues with flood risk management, increase overall communication between the flood risk response groups. Here we see collaboration among the flood risk management response groups at an interstate level to be really critical for making sure that the solutions we come up with are good for the whole basin, and to share best practices and information that can be of value across the basin. I'm very happy that these collaborative meetings have already begun, and the system-wide approach is already being identified as a need as investments in coordination actions take place. The Silver Jacket programs, these are the state programs that include the state and federal agencies of the basin that are responsible for flood protection, are beginning to meet together to work on the issues that go from individual states to those of the basin. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The next goal is abundant clean water. And here, what we're wanting to have is the world's cleanest working river basin with abundant water for human and ecological needs. Next slide. This goal is being led by Richard Harrison at Orsanco, which is the lead organization in most of the basin for clean water. This is being done also with input and partnership with the Cumberland River Compact that works on some of these same issues down in Tennessee. This is one of the more fleshed out of the goal areas. It's what Orsanco has been working on and thinking about for a long time. So I wanted to run through the objectives here. The first is by 2030 to increase the number of water bodies that meet the Clean Water Act's drinkable, swimmable, and fishable uses. So here, what we're wanting to do is really improve the water quality of our streams and rivers. We also want to be protecting the sources of drinking water, addressing the growing problem of harmful algal blooms, and collaborating on water management challenges of the basin. Second objective is by 2025 to develop effective strategies to support and enhance the utility source water protection programs that will meet the Safe Drinking Water Act, and to use best practices to help support organizations that lack source water protection programs. Part of this will include identifying appropriate funding mechanisms to support these strategic actions. The third objective is by 2025, prepare and execute a basin-wide strategy yielding measurable reduction in HABs in priority areas by 2030. We recognize that this work is already underway. It's already being done by states. But the idea here is to bring this together into a broader basin-wide strategy that we can use to leverage the resources that are necessary to really address this harmful algal bloom problem, which we recognized in ponds, then we started recognizing in our lakes and reservoirs, and now we even have our rivers with harmful algal bloom problems. Also within this abundant clean water set of objectives, we're looking at having a Ohio River Basin geographic information system. This would be a platform where we could have data layers for all types of challenges and interests in the basin, everything from where our water trails are to things like where our mine-related water protection concerns are. We want to use that kind of data to also make some prioritizations about how to improve or reduce the risk associated with some of these legacy extraction industry challenges. Next slide, please. A couple of more objectives for the clean water goal. This one is to increase water infrastructure financing and Innovation Act and state revolving loan fund funding and other infrastructure funding so that we can have adequate funding for our drinking and wastewater infrastructure. We recognize that there are huge needs that are not being met. And so when we hear discussions about drinking water or about infrastructure initiatives, we want to make sure that infrastructure initiatives think beyond bridges. We also, by 2025, want to have an inventory of our drinking and wastewater system infrastructure needs for the basin and develop a strategy to maintain these systems basin-wide. We know that there's work already underway, so what we're wanting to do is leverage the US EPA Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Needs Assessment Survey and other data that the states have in order to develop a communication strategy for the need that we have in the basin to address our aging infrastructure. So that's our, next slide, please. That's our plan for the basin. We consider this a framework. There's certainly a lot more work to be done to flesh out the strategic actions and steps that have to be taken to realize this plan, to bring together the advocacy that's needed. But we believe that this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the basin and for you. We believe that together we can make this happen. These problems are serious and the opportunities are great, and we need to act with urgency. Our working groups are forming, and for each goal, we are bringing together the expertise and commitment to realize the plan, and we believe that we can deliver it. But it is going to take all of us. It is a region-wide effort, and it will take the region to make this happen. Next slide, please. The invitation now to you, because it won't happen without all of us, is to get involved. So the first thing I would encourage you to do is read the plan. I gave you the highlights. There are a lot more details in there. You can find it at the Ohio River Basin Alliance.com. That's all one word. At that same site, I invite you to join ORBA. This is free. It gives you the opportunity to check your interests in terms of the goals you're interested in. And that will allow us to get back in touch with you to see how we can engage you with these goal-focused working groups. We do encourage you to be involved with the working groups. As a member of ORBA, you will receive our updates. These are every couple of months, but they will let you know what the opportunities are for you to engage with ORBA in this work in the basin. And then if you've got an interest, you might want to consider sponsoring an Ohio River Basin discussion series, which is one of the strategies. So perhaps in your local community, you would be interested in sponsoring discussion series around the Ohio River Basin, or even sponsoring an Ohio River Basin Summit. These are some of the ways you can get involved, but I will say that you may have better ideas. So I welcome your ideas on how you would like to be engaged with ORBA. So what we think we have done is to build a bridge to success. Next slide, please. We're going to be using science as a foundation for the priorities and needs of the basin. We're going to be focusing on consensus, equity, and justice. We're looking to build enthusiastic support from the public, from key organizations, from governors, and from Congress. Next slide. Next, and in order to do this, we need the support of everyone. So I would encourage you to go to the OhioRiverBasinAlliance.com to get the plan. Just click on it right there. You can also take that opportunity to join ORBA. And then the other thing I would ask is if your organization, after you have reviewed the plan, thinks that this is something that you really want to get behind, just send us an email to let us know. We would like to be able to document the organizations that are supportive of this plan. It'll help build that leverage we're looking for the basin. Next slide. And at this time, I just want to emphasize the whole purpose of this is to unite our basin in vision, strategy, and voice so that we can increase our leverage, increase our influence, and increase funding for the states and for the organizations of the basin that are working to make our Ohio River Basin a better place to live. I welcome your questions at this time, and I also welcome your input if there is suggestions or comments or ways you'd like to get involved.